Hey guys, Rip the Rage here. Hope you're having a fantastic day, and welcome to my movie review of Magnificent Seven. The last movie review I did was Warcraft, and I'm actually meaning to do one on Star Trek Beyond, because I actually went and saw that a few weeks ago when it was in theaters, and I am really wanting to get around that, but I really want to make this one first because I just saw Magnificent Seven like 2 days ago, and it was insanely good. So first off, spoiler alert, this video will have a lot of spoilers in it because I know me, if I want to talk about something and I want to get my thoughts out, I have to talk about it in all of its glory. So if you haven't seen the movie, go see the movie, or if you don't want a spoiler review, then go to Angry Joe Show, and he did a review of it, but there's a spoiler-free section and a spoiler section of the review. So two completely separate videos to watch, and the regular review section without spoilers is still pretty good. But moving on, so basically this movie is amazing. A solid motion picture. It is the epitome of a remake. This is how you reboot a series. Not really reboot, but this is how you bring an old classic into the new cinema. So westerns used to be a thing, right? They used to be a thing in the 60s and the 70s, and you know, they got John Wayne and you know, all this, you know, Wild Bill and Billy the Kid and stuff like that. But they kind of dropped off. The 80s kind of saw the rise of sci-fi, the 90s saw the rise of dystopia, and it just got to a point where westerns didn't really entertain people anymore. And I think that's really sad because westerns are really good stories. They're just so good. I mean, gunslingers in the Old West, it's just a really great time period. That's one reason I thoroughly enjoyed. My mom got really into Little House on the Prairie when it came back on TV. They were running it again. They were doing reruns, and I sat down with her to watch it one day, and I love that series. It's just the time period is so great to be in. Not to mention the action and the comedy in this picture was just so on point. They had an all-star cast. They couldn't have cast anybody better for these roles, and it was just, for lack of a better word, magnificent. So let's start with the plot. So the basic plot is that this guy named Bogue, B-O-G-U-E, Bogue, he's your typical bad guy, and he's kind of flat, in all honesty. He's very bland, there's not really a lot of tension between him and the characters. He has this sort of superiority complex that he's, like, really good at what he's doing or something, and he's kind of not. And his character's, like, underdeveloped through the film. So basically, he wants to take this town from these people, and he's offering them, you know, he wants the town for the gold in the ground, right? But he needs to buy their land, so then there's Bogue right there, and he ends up, like, killing a few people. So he ends up killing people, burning the church, and so this chick on screen, she actually goes to hire Denzel Washington's character, right? So the town pulls all their money together to hire some badasses to come and deal with this guy, because he's giving them shit prices for their land, and, you know, it's completely ridiculous. So Denzel Washington goes off, picks up Faraday, which is the gambler, and he actually plays Star-Lord in Guardians of the Galaxy. Fantastic actor. I can't remember his name for the life of me. But fantastic actor, and he was just on point. He was the comic relief. He had a slight screw loose in the film, though. It was so awesome. So he picks up him, then they pick up Vasquez, the Mexican, then they pick up the Tracker, which is played by Vincent D'Onofrio. I don't remember his name, but he plays Bobby Gorn on Law & Order Criminal Intent, and I love Bobby Gorn. He's just, oh my god, such a good character, and this actor, and it's great because he's got like kind of this high-pitched, like, soft tone. He's like a big bear, you know? He's just like, oh, and the Lord keeps me safe, and it's just so, it's for lack of better words, adorable how he speaks. He's just this big, lovable oaf, and I love it. He's got a slight hint of Down syndrome. Anyway, so they all get together. They walk into town. So the sheriff has been bought off, right? So he's got like 20 of the best, you know, shooters in the West, and that's the deputies. They've been, you know, deputized by the sheriff. Yeah. So Bogue buys off the sheriff. So the sheriff helps him, you know, keep people, and there's no guns in the town. So Denzel Washington just rolls up, he's like, here's my, and he's like, we don't allow firearms here. He's like, all right, and he's riding with Billy, the Asian guy, and it's like, okay, you just see those two. And he grabs his gun. He's like, okay, I'm fully ready to cooperate. I can't speak for my companions, though. And all the Magnificent Seven just surrounded the guys, and they're all standing there. And it's just such a great scene. So that's one of the confrontations. Then there's the big confrontation with the Gatling gun and the horsemen charging the town and the dynamite, and those are the only two big action scenes, which is kind of a double-edged sword, because I felt like they were well placed, but at the same time I felt like they could have had better timing with it. They felt like there needed to be more of a conflict between Denzel and Bogue. So I never watched the original Magnificent Seven, but from what I've been hearing, there was actually a point where the townspeople betrayed the Seven, and they actually ended up kicking them out of town and helped Bogue in the fight before the big fight. So there was a fight, and then there was the bigger fight when the Seven come back to the town. But that wasn't in here, and I feel like it was a poor choice by the director to not kind of stick to that. But otherwise, the pacing of the film, the comedy, the action, it's all very on point. The characters are fantastic. So I want to kind of run down the characters and what I liked about them and what I felt was really, really good about them. So, number one, Denzel Washington's character. He is a duly appointed warrant officer, legalized to, not legalized to kill. What's the word I'm looking for? He's sanctioned to kill in all 50 states, yada, yada, yada. So basically, he's, a sanctioned bounty hunter. And he's got this kind of backstory going on with Bogue. It's very, very subtle. You will miss it if you do not pay attention, because there are only 2 or 3 moments when you get a small taste of the backstory for Denzel. And the same goes for any characters. You get none of their backstory. There's something deeper there, but they never delve into it. And Denzel, it turns out that Bogue sent his men, sent a bunch of hired guns to Denzel's town when he was young, and they killed his sister and his mother and this, that, and the other, and tried to string him up, and that comes at the big climax, which was kind of underpowered in my opinion. We'll talk about that in a minute. So Denzel's character, very nice. As you can see, he's a damn good sharpshooter. He ends up actually not killing some of the guys in the bar, so he just shoots them, gets him in the hip, the leg, he blows one dude's foot off and blows the chair out from under him, but the dude falls over. He's like, he shot me in the foot! It's just hilarious, and it's great. Then there's the gambler, Faraday, and the gambler is the funny guy. He always makes a joke out of everything. His words are very, I shouldn't say powerful, but he's got a silver tongue. He's one of those guys that thinks he talks to buy himself time to set up, his little sneak play, and he's just typical of the comedic relief in this movie. And he dies, and it's actually really, really amazing how he dies. So at the end of the movie, he goes to take out the Gatling gun that's tearing up the town. And so he's running towards it, and people are, and then they pop him once, twice with a rifle, and he falls over on his knees, and he's trying to light this cigar, and he's trying to pull out these matches to light the cigar, but he's been shot twice, so he's fucking faking it. It's great. And he's faking it like he can't get the thing lit. And so this dude with an eye patch comes up, and he's like, okay, I'll light your cigar for you. You're about to die, so, dying man's last request. So he lights the cigar. Then, right before he's about to shoot him, Faraday topples over. Okay, so you think he's dead. Nah. He leans back up with a lit stick of dynamite, and he says the best line I've ever heard in any Western, and possibly in any film ever. He says, I always did have a problem with one-eyed Jacks, and then just tosses it straight at him. Oh, it's just great. Faraday, great character. Had a slight screw loose in the film. A little bit of backstory of saying, he didn't have a dad, just little quips here and there. Ended up, just messing with the one guy that, the chick, the red-haired woman, the female lead. She actually had this friend who was helping her out, and, he was like, hey, let me, give me a swig of whiskey and I'll teach you something about gunfighting. And so he does this thing with the card, and he's like, take the card from my hand. He's like, there, you just lost your first gunfight. So he's playing with him, and then he just pulls out his gun and points it at him. And he's just like, never hesitate, or something to that effect. He says something like, never hesitate, don't, you gotta be quicker, or, it was never, no, he says it was never about the cards. Rule number 2 is never about the cards. And he's obviously got a bit of a mental problem. He's obviously masking his insanity with humor. So he's kind of like the Joker in that, right? So off of Faraday, I've talked enough about Faraday. So next up is Vasquez. That's the next one they recruit. So Vasquez is this Mexican. He's actually wanted. So Denzel makes a deal with him. Hey, help me with this town, and I will, stop chasing you. Right? I could just kill you right now. I don't know how, because Vasquez was pointing a gun at him, but he basically looks at him and says, I'll make sure that I don't chase you down. And Vasquez is like, okay. So Vasquez and Faraday end up having this thing between them. So if you see, he's the outlaw. So the outlaw and the gambler tend to have this little racist, this pseudo-racist thing going on between them. So Faraday's cracking Mexican jokes at Vasquez, and Vasquez going at him, and very good scene in the bar in the town. So they're all sitting around drinking, laughing, and Faraday pulls out one of his guns and he says, "This is Dolores, and you'll show her respect." Yada yada. He's joking and shit, and the tracker's just like, "Oh, put the gun down now." And he's like, and he puts the gun down. He says, "You will show her some respect." And he pulls the gun out from his left hip and he says, "This is Maria. This is the one you can respect." And then Vasquez is like, "My Maria?" He's like, "You have Maria?" And then Vasquez says, "I have 3 Marias." And then there's just a great little back and forth between them through the entire film. Then there is Billy, and Billy is the Asian that rides with Goodnight. Goodnight is the guy played by Ethan Hawke, and he's the guy with the goatee right there behind Faraday. So he's the sharpshooter, he's the marksman, and Billy is the assassin. So where Goodnight goes, Billy goes, and Billy is just deadly. He kills this dude with a hairpin the first scene that he's in, and it's just so good. He's basically, think of a more lethal version of Jackie Chan in Shanghai Noon. That is exactly what Billy is. Not only that, but he's got this quips and everything. And another really good comedic moment was they're in the steeple of the church, and Billy and Goodnight are, and they're shooting out with their rifles and trying to keep people off Faraday's back while he's charging the Gatling gun. And he's like, this, and Goodnight looks over to Billy and he says, "This reminds me of something my daddy used to say." And then just awkward pause. And then Billy's like, "What's that, Goodnight?" And he says, "I don't know. Give me a minute. My daddy said a lot of things." It's just so well written. It really was. So that's Billy and Goodnight has this kind of PTSD thing going on. I thought at first he was an imposter. I would have liked the twist that he was actually an imposter. So he was a good shot, but he wasn't Goodnight. He was just an imposter, and Billy was his buddy, and they were faking it. Because Faraday actually tries to call him out on that at one point. I don't know if he's trying to call him out on being fake or being PTSD, because in the first gunfight against the sheriff and his deputies, Goodnight ends up not firing anything. But he's obviously distraught mentally, so he's not ready to fight. So then that's Billy, Faraday, that's Denzel. I can't remember Denzel's Denzel Washington, yeah. I can't remember Denzel's character for the life of me. I think it's Schmitz, James, something like that. And then there's Billy, Goodnight, Denzel, and then Faraday. So that's 4. So 5th would be Red Harvest, so the Indian in the film. So it doesn't make a good Western unless you got a couple of Indians in it, right? So Red Harvest is this guy. He just shows up out of nowhere for some reason. And he says, basically when they meet, Denzel's talking to him, and Denzel's like, "Why are you here? Where's your tribe?" And he's like, the elders of my tribe said that my path is different from theirs. And it's like, okay. So he just basically signs up to kill a bunch of white men. That's basically all he's there for. So yeah, not a lot to Red Harvest's character. Really not. He's the strong, silent type in every sense of the word. He ends up getting in a fight with the other Indian, if you notice, the dude with the yellow bandana that's on Bogue's side. And it lasts for all about 5 seconds. he just stabs him once, stabs him twice, then rolls him off a fucking roof, and we're done. That's literally, I'm not even exaggerating. It's literally about a 10-second battle. I'm not even kidding. If you don't believe me, go watch the film. Go look it up on YouTube or something. It is a 10-second fight, which sucked because I really wanted this big climax moment between the 2 Indians, Like, I wanted some smack talk, like, "You're a disgrace." I want to see the big dude throw him over the bar and just, smashing bottles. And I would have loved to see some savagery and some long, drawn-out, battle. But there really wasn't, and that really, really got me. That was one thing that kind of drags down my opinion of this film, because that was one moment where they really missed out. So that is Red Harvest, and so that's 5. Number 6 would be... Oh, wait, I forgot Vasquez, so we should be on 7 by now. Yep, so finally, the Tracker. Vincent DeFrang, I really can't remember his name, but just the Tracker guy, okay? Big dude, beard, he's the gentle giant, and he's just so cool. He's savage. So if you've ever seen Saving Private Ryan, the marksman in that movie, when he fires his weapon, when he's sniping at people, he always says a prayer. Like, he speaks in prayers while he's attacking people. That's exactly, and I thought it was such a cool kind of reference, or kind of, you know, hint towards that this guy's got a few screws loose as well. And so the Tracker, when he's in combat and he's hitting people with his, you know, his axe and everything, he's just reciting Bible verses, and it's actually both horrifying and hilarious at the same time. And it's a very hard thing to be hilarious and horrifying, and he did it very, very well. So yeah, and like I said, a bit of backstory here as well. So you get like one line about his past. Like, why is he alone? He's like, I had a family once, wife, kids, once. And it's like, so what happened to him? What happened? I want to know. So it's really great. And so my buddy actually pointed out something to me after the film. He said that he said that that it turns out that only the non-white people live. So the Tracker dies, Faraday dies, Goodnight dies, Billy dies. So it's left with Red Harvest, Vasquez, and Denzel's character, which I really can't remember his fucking name. It's pissing me off. So the bounty hunter. So then it's the bounty hunter, the Indian, and the Mexican, right? And I was like, huh, you're right. I don't know if that was intentional or if it's just how the characters were written to die. I'm not sure. Even so, I'm not going to get into the whole is it you know, racist, not racist. I don't care. It was just an interesting choice. So let's talk about the final confrontation. So big battle, shit's going down, and dynamite's exploding, and fighting, and Gatling guns going off, and after Faraday takes out the Gatling gun, then it's down to just, you know, and then Bogue just walks into town like this. He thinks he's so smart, so he just walks into town with 2 bodyguards. Denzel dispatches them both, and then decides to get into a little duel with Bogue, and then and it's great because they did the stereotypical like cliche Western thing of Denzel draws on him. Denzel already has the drop on him. He's already drawn on him, and then when Bogue tries to draw his gun, he shoots it out of his hand. And he's like, "Pick it up, go on, pick it up." And he tries to pick it up, and he shoots it again, and it was great. Denzel. So then Denzel is like backing him up. So Bogue is like scared now, so he's like backing up, and he crawls into the church, and he's like, "Are you a God-fearing man?" And then Denzel stops for a minute, and you think, "Oh, is he really just gonna let him go?" And he's like, "Yeah." He walks in, and he just kills him anyway. They also did another cliche thing, which I think they could have avoided, which it seemed kind of just unnecessary. So Denzel is strangling Bogue, and Bogue sneaks a fucking little pistol out of his boot, and he's about to shoot Denzel. But then you hear a gunshot, and Bogue falls down, and it reveals that, oh, Miss Liza, the red-haired, you know, female lead in this movie, she's standing there with a rifle, and she shot Bogue, and yay, day saved. So that's actually it. That's the final confrontation, which really sucked. I would have loved to instead have Denzel, you know, confronting Bogue, and Bogue's in the church. He's like, "Are you a God-fearing man?" And instead of stepping into the church, I would have loved to see Denzel's character just go, "You know, sir, I am." And then just step out of the way, and there's Red Harvest standing right there. And he says, "But I do not believe this man shares my divinity for the Lord." And then just Red Harvest goes in, and you just hear this ungodly screaming and stabbing sounds. Just, and Denzel's just standing outside, listening to it. And he wanted revenge, so I get it. I get why Denzel's character went in. He wanted revenge for his mother and his sister. But I still think it would have been more powerful if they just made a joke of it and decided, this final confrontation, this final big battle, you know what? Here, Red Harvest, you do it. You do go murder this fool. And I think it's just a missed opportunity. Just like the fight between Red Harvest and Bogue's Indian guy. Missed opportunity, but that doesn't drag my score for the film down. So my final score. This film was funny, it had action, it was extremely well written, the characters had depth, but you never got to go into the depth of them. You never got their backstories. You just knew what they were now and a small bit of what they used to be. And it's just fantastic. So my final verdict for The Magnificent Seven is an 8 out of 10. And I say 8 out of 10, it's a solid 8 out of 10. So it's wavering 8, 9, that area, because the action was strong, the writing, the comedy, everything was pretty perfect. But there were those, you know, few sections where I think that they could have done with the church, like I said, with Red Harvest. Red Harvest's fight with the other Indian should have lasted way longer, like at least make it 30 seconds, not 10. And then there was also, I would have loved them to put some sort of revenge plot in there for Lima. So if she is going to in fact shoot him, then there could have been some sort of clever line that Bogue said to her in the beginning of the film. They could have written it like that, which I think would have been a good idea. Bogue's character was weak, but not too much, and yeah, that's about it. I hope you guys enjoyed this movie review of The Magnificent Seven. I highly suggest you go out and watch it, and if you did enjoy this, then don't forget to like, subscribe, check out my streams, and I will see you guys in the next video. Reaper the Rager, signing off.